I invite you for a moment to close your eyes and bring to mind the greatest conversation you've ever had. I'm sure you've had countless life-changing interactions that were so electric and connective that they represented turning points in your life. But for now, I'd like you to just pick one because we are going to use the technique of visualization to bring it to life. With your eyes closed, I want you to return to the point in your life where you had this conversation. Where in the world were you? What year was it? What season was it? What time of day was it? What was the weather like outside? Set the scene of this environment, bringing it to life clearly. Hear all the sounds associated with the environment. Smell all the smells associated with the environment. Remember who else was around. Remember what clothes were on your body, what your hair looked like, what your posture looked like. Imagine the face of the person or people you were conversing with. See their facial expressions. See their body language. Hear their voices in your head and reawaken the feeling this created in your body. Breathe into this feeling of connection, of excitement, of camaraderie, of stimulation, of spontaneity, of collectivism, and ask yourself, how did this conversation change me? What did this conversation teach me? What elements of this conversation have I never experienced before this conversation or since this conversation? What makes this conversation once in a lifetime? Breathe into this feeling of gratitude for the fact that you ever had such a lovely experience. Thank the world for sending it your way and gently open your eyes. Conversation is one of the oldest forms of learning and self-expansion that we have in our species' history. Today, I want to talk about oral storytelling, oral history, oral dialogue, why it's been suppressed and replaced with the written word, with visual media, and why it's the single greatest tool we have to save our species from extinction. Peace and love, y'all. Hello and welcome back to another moment of stillness. My name is Itai Atula, coming to you live from Barcelona. In case we never met before, I am a traveling yoga teacher, writer, speaker, musician, homie, son, brother, friend. I'm 23 years young, and my greatest passion is talking to you in this way. Actually, that's not true. My greatest passion would be if we were face to face. This is the next best thing. The blessing of this format is that I get to reach so many more people, but the drawback is what this video is all about. Let me set the scene for y'all. Until printing was invented, our species shared story, shared history, shared space with one another through oral tradition. We used our voices to come closer together, to learn lessons, to educate the young, and to honor the elders of our communities. But due to things like the written word, the printing press, photography, the whole technological revolution, now we get most of our information either through text or visuals. And I'm about to get into all the reasons why this transition of media is a very effective tool for population control, population suppression, homogenization of ideas, and submission of the working class to the values and ambitions of the elite. Before I get into those reasons, let me set up some parallels for you. It's no wonder that the transition from oral to written to visual has happened at the same time as the transition from paganism, from polytheism, from indigenous religions to monotheism, like Christianity and Islam and Judaism. Today in 2025, most people on this earth follow a small group of religions, whereas in the past, every community had a different set of myths, of beliefs, of values, of spiritual practices that had to do with the land they were on and the tradition of their ancestors. Also, our society has transitioned from living in communities, small tribes of, 100 to 200 hunter-gatherers, egalitarian societies, to larger civilization structures, big cities, big wealth inequality, the contradiction of extreme population density and extreme loneliness. It's no coincidence that the transition of religion and of social structure has happened along with the transition of storytelling from oral to written to visual. Let me tell you exactly why this transition has been deliberately executed in order to suppress human potential. It might be a very uncomfortable truth that I'm delivering to you right now. You don't have to agree, but I promise this is an optimistic transmission. And for every flaw I share that has to do with written or visual media, on the opposite side of that same coin is a great benefit to the art of conversation that's available to us all. So I know I set that up to sound pretty depressing, but it's actually gonna be very inspiring, I promise. Let's get into these 4 reasons why the art of the spoken word has been suppressed. Number 1 is rigidity. When you have a book that you can print an infinite number of times, when you have a movie you can screen an infinite number of times, media becomes not only repeatable, but rigid. Whereas in-person conversation, oral storytelling, as it was told for centuries, is fluid, is bespoke, never happens the same way twice. Now, why is that fluidity a great strength for the people and a great weakness for the state? Let me explain. When you can kind of change up a story every time you tell it, it allows you to adapt to the audience you're with. If I'm telling the same story to a bunch of my friends, I might even change certain details based on references that I know each of my friends will really feel. On an individual level, everybody needs something different, and if I can look into somebody's face when I'm telling them a story, I can change certain things to reverse engineer the feeling I want them to have. It becomes more of a performance and it becomes more intimate as well. But if I was to write out that same story and post it online, or make a video talking about it, every single person who experiences that will be hearing it or reading it the same exact way. Now, why is that so dangerous? Number one, the story will get sterilized to appease every audience. Let's say if I did something kind of embarrassing that I don't want to share with the whole world, I just want to share with one friend, I might not include that in the story. Let's say I want to share an experience that I had that I really enjoyed, but I know other people might not understand. I won't be as willing to put that in the story. Let's say there's a really niche reference I want to include, but I don't because I just know everyone won't get it. So I take it out. I keep flattening and flattening the story to appeal to the lowest common denominator, to appeal to everybody. And eventually it loses the intimacy that would have made it appeal to anybody in a one-on-one conversation. And you could forget a one-on-one conversation. Even if I was in person, standing on a stage in a room, I could read the faces of everyone in the audience and adapt the story in real time based on their facial expressions, based on their reactions. This is what I do during every yoga class I teach. I improvise the flow based on what I'm getting from the audience. It's a great strength because I can go a lot deeper and have a greater impact when I can see firsthand in real time how my actions are affecting somebody. The feedback loop is immediate. But when I publish a newsletter, when I publish a video, it feels like I'm being watched. And of course, I do everything I can to make this feel like a one-on-one conversation. But let's face it, if you've ever talked to a camera, you know that it feels like someone's watching you. Not a person watching you, but an entity, this collective that's intangible, but sometimes very scary. It feels a lot colder, and it feels a lot more confusing. I'm literally sitting in the middle of a park right now talking to a camera. I'm alone right now, and I can visualize who's on the other side of this video and attempt to connect with you as deeply as possible. But I'll never be able to do that as effectively as when I'm directly in front of you. In that way, the messages that get delivered over visual media or written media don't demand us to feel in the same way that a face-to-face thing does. If you go to the theater, if you go to a concert, if your friend is telling you about a breakup, you are almost compelled to have a certain reaction. The same is not true when the message gets so flattened that it has to appeal to everybody. At least it can be much, much harder to get you to do that. And those are all the reasons why the rigidity, the inflexibility of the written medium and the visual medium prevent connection. The next reason is passivity. Written and visual media are so passive. Oral conversation is so much more active. Every in-person audience must be active. For one, you went through the effort to commute to a physical place that you share with other people, to stay awake, to stay engaged. That requires a lot of activity. If you're at home watching a movie, you could turn it off whenever you want. If you're reading a book, you could just close it at the next page. But if I was face-to-face with you having a conversation, you probably wouldn't just be like, stop, I'm going to sleep right now. Because of our social contract, you have to actually pull your weight as an audience member when you're doing something in person. Another aspect is that visual media in particular demands nothing of your imagination. Written media is a little bit better because when you're reading a book, you have to imagine the sights, the sounds, based on the words that are describing what's going on. But the imagination that's demanded of you is taken to a whole other level when you're face-to-face with somebody telling a story, having a conversation, performing art of some kind. Because for the same reasons you have to stay awake, stay engaged, your mind naturally glides across different things in your imagination. If you're having a dialogue, you have to actually use your brain to figure out the best way to respond. This cognitive load is so good for us. It prevents our risk of dementia, and it just makes us a lot smarter, a lot more energetic, a lot more sharp. And we've all experienced that feeling of being on your phone and scrolling so passively, consuming media so mind-numbingly, so unconsciously. And it's easy to do that because it demands nothing of you. Your cognitive load decreases. And I hate to say it, but our brains literally become stupider when we do that. And then the third reason on the heels of that is loneliness. For most of us who have a scrolling problem, think of the worst scrolling binge you've ever had in your life. I bet nobody even saw you doing it. That's the real issue here, is that visual media and even written media isolates because you have to do it alone. I mean, maybe you show your friend a funny video, but you don't sit there scrolling for 2 hours looking at the same device as your friend. If anything, you'll do it in parallel. And you definitely don't read a book with a friend. You might have a book club, you might read next to each other, but it's not an activity that involves interaction. It's a solitary thing. Whereas going to an event, meeting in community, is always better with other people. I'm not the first person to tell you that there's a big loneliness epidemic in our world at the moment. And because storytelling has become so rigid and passive and lonely, we will never get out of that unless we actually make an effort to go do the same things that our species has been doing for millennia. Go out and experience entertainment, experience storytelling, experience art in community. When you lose the camaraderie of being in the same room with somebody, either watching a performance or being in the same restaurant as other people having a conversation with your friends, and you're at home, on your TV, reading a book, scrolling on your phone. It feels like you're having an experience that anybody could have, and that makes you feel less special because we used to have to curate our own entertainment. And now, if we surrender to the constant stream of information, it will be fed to us with no input of our own. It becomes so easy to start feeling like a cog in the machine when you have no influence over what you're consuming. That's why getting out into community, seeing that you're around other people who maybe have things in common with you, can make you so much less lonely. And then finally, the fourth reason is value reduction. All I'm saying is there's a reason we still pay for concerts and not for streaming music. There's a reason we pay for going to the movie theater, but there are so many movies available to us for free at home. I don't know about you, but I'm happy to pay to go into a club and dance, to go and watch a show, to go to a sports game, because it just feels more valuable. The things that we consume in isolation feel absolutely worthless, no matter how much time and effort and money were put into it. Usually it's a lot, but always remember that when the return is not financial, the producer is being paid in a different currency, which is your attention. And because it's so much easier, so much more passive to just throw on a movie at home, to just listen to something on your phone, it sucks up more and more of our attention. It opens us up to be the subject of advertisement. It opens us up to propaganda and programming. It weakens our ability to choose our own thoughts. And because all this art is usually repeatable, like a short video on your phone, like a post on Substack, like an album you can listen to as many times as you want, it feels less bespoke, less one of one, less special. It's more justifiable to pay for an experience that will never happen again. And of course, in this physical reality, every moment is one of one. Every moment is different like a snowflake. But that book reads the same every time you pick it up. That song sounds the same every time you listen to it. It feels less precious because it's less fleeting. It's just more reliable. And instead of appreciating the reliability, we take it for granted. And here's probably the most important part of all of this. Anyone can tell a story. Anyone can have a conversation. Anyone can get up on stage and tell a little bit about their life. But yet, I hear time and time again people saying, oh, I wish I could write. I wish I could speak to a camera. I wish I could draw like that. I wish I could make music. Those are virtuous skills to have, and I'm not knocking the pursuit of them as somebody who's on the pursuit myself. But the evolution of media and of art has created this hierarchy, this separation between who's an artist and who's a consumer. And that infuriates me, to be honest with you, because we are all artists, we are all creatives, and the embrace of oral storytelling would level the playing field for everyone to contribute something. We're programmed to think it's all very all or nothing. Either you're Beethoven, either you're Michael Jackson, either you're Agatha Christie, or you're absolutely nobody but a consumer. Art has become so intertwined with commerce that we have phrases like amateur artist versus professional artist, as if it's not something that we should just do for fun. This is why oral storytelling will save us. This is why getting in public, being in person with people will save us. We are so much easier to oppress. Our phone is our best friend. We are so much more connected we can actually see each other. Let's have more conversations. Let's be more artistic in our meetings. Let's attend more live events. Let's remember what real physical community looks like. And for those moments when you are alone, I have a suggestion. Listen to guided meditations. And I know I sound biased because I'm a creator of guided meditations, but they don't have to be mine. I have a bunch on this channel, but I also use Insight Timer, where there are countless creators sharing amazing guided meditations that I use every morning and every evening. And although guided meditations do happen independently, they are rigid, they are free, they are not passive, and they are not lonely. They are very active, because when you do a guided meditation, it requires of you to wake up your senses, much like we did at the beginning of this transmission, where I asked you to remember your favorite conversation. And you feel like that experience is happening to you. It boosts oxytocin, and guided meditations in general are designed to reverse engineer different hormonal and chemical responses in your body, in your brainwaves, in your psychology. They're also not lonely because they connect you to something outside yourself. The definition of yoga is a connection with the higher power, connection with the things around you. And if you've ever done a guided meditation before, you know that's exactly how it feels by the end. So when this is over, go listen to a guided meditation, and then go write a plan for how you're gonna see a friend, go to a concert you've been meaning to see, go to a park and talk to a stranger. Let me know in the comments below what stood out to you about this conversation. Let me know what you plan to do to keep oral tradition alive. I love you so much. I thank you for being here. And I want you to know that our future is so bright. The light that we share will ripple out and continue cascading until every being on this earth is filled with joy, filled with gratitude, filled with optimism, dazzling and sparkling. I'll catch you next time. Peace and love.